Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. The sizzle of steaks on the indoor grill filled the living room with the smell of pepper and mesquite. I was halfway through flipping the ribeyes when Claire walked in barefoot, wine glass in hand, and dropped the kind of sentence that doesn't just kill a dinner, it kills trust. "We should talk about opening the marriage," she said lightly, like she was asking to repaint the kitchen. I froze, tongs still in my hand. I turned slowly, studying her face for some kind of grin. A joke, a trap, something. "What did you just say?" My voice didn't rise, but it got colder. Claire took a sip, leaned her hip against the edge of the couch like this was just another Tuesday. "You heard me," she said. "I think it's something we should consider. A lot of couples are doing it. It's freeing." Freeing. That word hit harder than any slap could have. "You mean cheating, but with permission?" I asked. "That's what you're calling freeing now?" She laughed. "Come on, Ethan. Don't be so dramatic. Fidelity's just an outdated cage." I set the tongs down. Slowly, deliberately. "Is that what I am to you now? A cage?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Don't twist it." "I'm not twisting anything. I'm just trying to understand how the woman I build a life with is standing in front of me, sipping wine, and telling me she wants to start sharing." Claire's tone was breezy, but her words were cutting. "Monogamy's a social script. We don't have to follow it anymore." I stepped toward her, lowering my voice so every word came out sharp and clean. "Don't ever bring this up again." Her eyes narrowed. "Or what? Or we're done pretending this is a marriage." For a second, we just stared at each other. Her mouth opened, like she wanted to laugh, or maybe say something clever, but nothing came out. The stakes burned. Neither of us moved. She turned first, walking off without a word. But I saw her shoulders tense, the way she held her wine glass tighter. I stood there, jaw clenched, watching smoke curl up from the grill like it was trying to carry my anger out of the room. That night, we ate in silence. No music, no small talk, just two people chewing through bitterness and protein, pretending we weren't tearing apart at the seams. Claire cleared her plate early, vanished upstairs. I stayed behind, staring at the empty chair across from mine, wondering when exactly the ground had shifted beneath me. From the outside, we looked like any couple in this neighborhood. Suburban Texas. Comfortable home. Solid finances. 2 cars in the driveway. Holiday photos with matching sweaters. I coached Little League. She ran a yoga studio. We had a dog named Murphy that still thought we were happy. But now there was a crack in the floor that hadn't been there yesterday. And somehow, I knew it wouldn't stay small. The next night, I came home a little later than usual. Traffic on 35 was a mess, and all I wanted was a cold drink and a quiet dinner. Instead, I walked through the front door and into a performance. Claire was in the kitchen with her 2 best friends, Becca and Lana. Loud laughter bounced off the tile, wine glasses clinked, and from the way Claire tossed her hair and leaned into their conversation, it was clear I wasn't supposed to be here yet. Becca, curly-haired, always loud, recently divorced, was the first to spot me. "Well, look who's home, Mr. Monogamy himself," she grinned, waving her glass like she was hosting a game show. Lana, the one who always wore silk scarves and spoke like she was on a podcast, chimed in. "We're just talking liberation, Ethan. Pour a drink, stay a while." Claire looked over her shoulder with a tight smile. "Dinner's in the oven. Thought you might want to eat with us." The table was already set, 4 places. Without asking me, I hung my keys, loosened my collar, and walked in slow. Didn't realize we were hosting tonight. Becca patted the seat next to her. "You're just in time. We're talking about how the modern marriage needs an upgrade." Claire poured more wine. They were sharing their stories, their experiences. "Open experiences," Lana added, eyes sharp. "We don't believe in the ownership model." I sat down, mostly to keep my hands still. "So what is this? A sermon?" I asked, voice calm. "Should I take notes?" Becca laughed. "Don't be such a cowboy. We're just trying to have a real conversation. About choice, growth, evolution." Claire leaned against the counter, glass in hand. "They've both been living this way for over a year. And it's been incredible," Lana said, locking eyes with me like she was challenging me to flinch. "No lies, no resentment, just honesty and options." I nodded slowly. "Options? Sure." Becca tilted her head. "You don't sound convinced." I leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Let me ask you something," I said. "When you go to sleep at night, do you feel whole, or just distracted?" Are you free, or just terrified of being alone? The laughter stopped. For a breath, the air turned thick. Becca blinked. Excuse me. You all talk about freedom like it's an upgrade, I said, voice steady. But maybe you're just running from the hard parts. From commitment. From being fully known. Claire's lips parted, ready to interrupt, but Lana beat her to it. Wow, that's rich, coming from someone who thinks love is a leash. No, I replied. I think love is a choice. One you make again and again, even when it's not easy. Especially when it's not. Becca rolled her eyes. You sound like a brochure for couples counseling. I stood, calmly. And you sound like people trying very hard to believe their own story. Claire moved toward me, voice sharp. Ethan, this isn't the time. No, I said, staring at all three of them. This is exactly the time. Becca and Lana exchanged a glance, the kind of look people share when they've decided you're the fool in the room. Well, if you're not ready for the future, Lana said, rising, maybe we should leave you in the past. Claire didn't stop them. She didn't defend me. She just stood there, arms crossed, watching them gather their handbags like I was the one who'd ruined the evening. Becca chuckled as she passed me. Good luck holding the dam, cowboy. The water's already coming through. I didn't say a word. Just watched them disappear out the door, their laughter fading into the night like smoke. The silence that followed was louder than anything they'd said. Claire lingered by the sink, her expression unreadable. But I saw the line in her jaw, the way it clenched when I didn't beg for peace. I stepped back, picked up my plate from the table, and calmly carried it to the sink. She finally broke the silence. You embarrassed me. I didn't look at her. No, I said. You did that yourself. It was well past midnight when the last light in the kitchen clicked off. I sat in the living room, one hand wrapped around a glass of whiskey, the other resting on my knee, just listening to the creak of floorboards upstairs. Claire had stomped up over an hour ago, heels clicking like hammers across tile, but I could still hear drawers slamming, closet doors opening and closing with sharp purpose. Eventually, the noise stopped. The bedroom door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames. I stayed exactly where I was. The room was soaked in shadows, lit only by the dim orange glow of the lamp behind me and the soft crackle of the ice in my glass. Outside, the wind whispered against the windows like it was trying to get in on the conversation. But the conversation was long over. And maybe, so was the marriage. I took a slow sip, then set the glass down on the coffee table. My reflection in the darkened TV screen stared back, tired, tight-lipped, and no longer surprised. Claire hadn't said goodnight. Not that I expected her to. After her friends left, she barely made it through 10 minutes of silence before exploding. You embarrassed me in front of people who support me. I'd replied with nothing more than a nod. That burned her more than shouting ever could have. She wanted chaos. Reactions. Fire. But I wasn't giving her that anymore. Upstairs, another drawer opened and shut. She was still mad, pacing maybe, making noise not to find something, but to make sure I knew she was done being quiet. I leaned back into the couch, breathing in slow. The truth settled in like dust, quiet but undeniable. Claire wasn't looking for permission. She was looking for justification. She wanted to feel right before she went ahead and did what she was already planning. That made this a game. I don't like games. I'm a man who builds things, solid, simple, and meant to last. But if she wanted to play, I'd stop pretending I wasn't keeping score. Not out of spite, out of clarity. The rules had changed, and I needed to understand just how far she was willing to go. And to do that, I had to stop warning her. I had to let her show me. Let her reveal the boundaries she was so ready to erase. I stood, stretching the stiffness out of my legs, and looked around the house. Our house. It still looked like a place that held love. Photos on the wall, dog toys under the coffee table, an old blanket draped over the recliner like someone had just napped there. But something in it felt empty now, like the heartbeat had gone missing. Murphy, our golden retriever, lifted his head from the rug near the door. His eyes followed me quietly, the way dogs do when they sense something's shifted in the air. I scratched behind his ear. It's gonna get weird, buddy, I murmured. He blinked slowly. No judgment, just quiet loyalty. I envied him for that. As I turned out the last light and climbed the stairs, I paused outside the bedroom door. I could hear Claire breathing on the other side. Awake, not asleep. Still angry. Still expecting something from me. But I wasn't offering comfort tonight. I went to the guest room instead. As I closed the door behind me, a quiet decision settled in my chest. I wouldn't ask again. I wouldn't try to pull her back. Whatever path she wanted, she'd have to walk it fully. And I'd be waiting, not to stop her, but to meet her on the other side, with a truth she couldn't laugh off. It was a warm Saturday night, the kind that made neighbors linger longer in lawn chairs and the cicadas sing louder from the trees. Claire and I were standing in the backyard of her cousin's house, the glow of string lights casting a golden hue over paper plates, punch bowls, and gossip that flowed easier than the drinks. She wore a backless dress, the kind she used to save for vacations. Laughter followed her everywhere she went, like she had become the center of whatever orbit she'd stepped into. Me? I kept to the grill with the other husbands. Talking sports, gas prices, the usual, nothing deep. I didn't say much, just enough to pass as present. Then, from across the yard, I heard her voice, bright, loud, just tipsy enough to blur the line between truth and performance. "I'm in an open marriage now," Claire announced, raising her glass high. "Ethan can find someone too." Heads turned. Laughter rose like a wave. Someone clapped, half confused. I saw Becca nodding with too much approval. I looked over at her, meeting her eyes from across the yard. She thought I'd flinch, but I smiled instead. I stepped forward through the crowd, calm as a Sunday morning, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Great. I'll take your sister, Emily." Silence. Not even the wind moved. Claire's expression shattered instantly. Her glass paused midair. It wobbled just a little, just enough to catch the glint of string lights across the rim. Then, a small laugh broke the stillness. Emily, her younger sister, standing beside her, grinned, eyes wide with surprise. "Well," she said, raising her brows, "guess I should have worn heels." She slipped her hand into mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. Claire didn't move, not even to blink. The color drained from her face, lips parted just slightly like she hadn't quite finished breathing. What are you doing?" she asked, voice low, brittle. I didn't answer her. Instead, I looked at Emily. "Care for a walk?" I asked, like we were at a high school dance. She smiled. "Why not?" We turned and walked away, past the tiki torches, past the shocked faces, past Becca, who stood there frozen with her mouth open like someone had unplugged her. The music drifted behind us, some mellow country song about pickup trucks and promises, and Emily leaned in just enough to whisper, "You sure know how to kill a mood." I smirked. I didn't kill anything, just accepted the rules of the game. She gave a soft laugh. "You always this calm in a storm?" "Only when I know where I stand," I said. We crossed the edge of the yard and stepped onto the quiet sidewalk, the hum of the party now a distant buzz behind us. It smelled like fresh-cut grass and summer sweat. The sky overhead was wide and black, stars peeking through like they were eavesdropping. Emily kept pace beside me, her tone shifting. "You know she was trying to get a rise out of you, right?" "I know. She didn't think you'd actually call her bluff." "I didn't," I said. "I just saw the moment for what it was. An invitation." Emily stopped walking for a second, turned to face me. "And what am I then?" she asked, curious but not mocking. I looked at her for a long beat, then answered, honest and without edge. "A person I trust, who hasn't lied to me." That caught her off guard, but she didn't flinch. She just nodded. Then we kept walking, and behind us, the sounds of the party returned, faint, scattered, but still clinging to whatever illusion Claire had tried to build. Only now, the illusion had cracked, and I wasn't the one left holding the pieces. We walked past the glowing windows of late-night cafes and record shops, the sound of music and conversation spilling gently into the warm Austin night. Emily had taken her heels off 2 blocks back, holding them loosely in one hand while her bare feet pressed softly against the pavement. "I can't believe she said that," Emily muttered, shaking her head as we passed a closed bookstore. Like out loud, in front of half the family. I glanced over. "You really didn't know?" She scoffed, not angry, just tired. "Claire and I haven't been close for a long time. But no, I didn't know she was calling it an open marriage. That's new. Honestly, I thought you two were just going through something. Normal married people turbulence." I nodded slowly. That's what I thought too, until she decided turbulence meant tossing the whole plane out of the sky. Emily laughed under her breath. "You always talk like that." I smiled. "Only when I'm trying not to lose my mind." We crossed over a narrow bridge with string lights lining the railing, the water below catching the reflections like a mirror, trying to keep up. Somewhere behind us, the party was probably still going, or maybe it had fizzled the way these things tend to do, once the wrong kind of silence sets in. Emily broke it this time. So, did you mean what you said back there? I looked at her. About taking your hand? She nodded once, quiet. I meant it as a move Claire wouldn't see coming, I said honestly. But when you didn't pull away, something in me settled. Like I wasn't the crazy one for thinking what she said wasn't normal. Her lips curved into a faint, understanding smile. Yeah, that hit me too. We reached a small park with benches under swaying trees. The kind of quiet spot tucked between the noise, where college students sometimes brought guitars or couples held hands without needing words. We sat, our steps finally slowing down to match our thoughts. Emily tucked her feet under her, heels placed neatly beside her on the bench. So what now? She asked. I shrugged lightly, hands folded. I guess I try to understand how far Claire's willing to go. Figure out who I am when I stop chasing the idea of how marriage is supposed to look. She turned toward me, more serious now. Can I ask something? Sure. Why did you stay this long? I mean, after that outdated Cage line, I'd have packed a bag. I exhaled slow. Because I didn't want to believe she meant it. Because I still remembered the version of her that cried at our wedding vows. Because I thought loyalty meant staying even when your partner's lost. Emily looked down at her lap. That's a heavy way to love someone. Yeah, I said quietly. It is. She was quiet for a moment, then asked something that shifted the weight in the air. What does loyalty mean to you? I thought about that. Then I turned to her and asked, what does it mean to you? She looked out across the park lawn, the wind lifting her hair slightly as she answered. It means choosing someone every day, even when you don't have to. Not because it's expected, not because there's a rule book, but because, deep down, you still want to. I didn't speak right away. Those words landed with a weight that felt good, honest, like they filled the cracks that had formed in me over the last few months. I nodded, the corner of my mouth twitching into something close to gratitude. That's the best definition I've heard in a long time. Emily didn't say anything back. She just leaned against the backrest of the bench and looked up at the stars, her shoulder brushing mine for a second too long. And for the first time in weeks, I let it stay there. I didn't lean away. I didn't apologize for the silence. I just let it settle, this small, unexpected sense of peace. Because whatever happened next, I finally felt like I wasn't walking through it alone. It was almost 9 p.m. when I heard the knock on the door. Soft, careful. Not the kind of knock that demands attention, just enough to say, I'm here if you want to answer. I opened it to find Emily standing there with a brown paper bag tucked under one arm and a familiar smile that had started feeling safe. Did I interrupt anything? She asked. I stepped aside. Only Murphy's snoring and a rerun of something I wasn't watching. She held out the bag. You mentioned you liked Wendell Berry. I found this in a secondhand shop. Thought you might want it. I took the book gently. J.B. Crow. Hardcover. Worn edges, like someone had loved it enough to reread. That meant something. You want to stay a while? I asked. She hesitated for a second, then nodded. Sure. Dinner was unplanned. Just leftover roasted chicken and a quick salad I threw together. She helped without asking, chopping vegetables while I poured drinks. The kitchen buzzed with that soft, companionable rhythm I'd missed. Two people moving in the same space, without friction. So Claire's out tonight? She asked, settling onto a stool. I nodded. Said she was going dancing. Some club downtown with Becca and Lana. Emily made a face. Let me guess, heels, glitter, and philosophical takes on why commitment is a social prison. I smirked. Something like that. We talked through dinner. Books. Music. Family quirks. I learned Emily used to play piano but hadn't touched one in years. I told her I used to sketch old cars as a kid. At some point, Murphy climbed onto the couch beside her, and she scratched behind his ears like she'd always lived here. Time slipped. By 1 a.m., we were both in pajamas. Mine, predictable flannel. Hers, a borrowed t-shirt from the laundry room, and a pair of leggings she had in her car. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, blanket tossed between us, the book she brought now open between our legs. And then the front door opened. Claire stumbled in, heels in one hand, hair a little wild, eyes adjusting to the dim light. The moment she saw Emily, her expression sharpened like glass under pressure. What? What are you doing here? She asked, voice still sticky from the club. Emily sat up. I just dropped off a book. Ended up staying for dinner. Claire's gaze snapped to me. At this hour? In pajamas? I stayed seated calm. She's not driving home at 2 in the morning. She's staying in the guest room. Claire's breath caught. No, she's not. Emily stood, slowly. Claire, it's late. Claire snapped, ignoring her. You need to go. I looked at Emily. You don't have to leave. Emily held my eyes for a beat, then nodded. I'll stay. That was it. Claire let out a sharp, bitter laugh, then stormed past us, kicking off her shoes like a teenager denied the last word. Her bedroom door slammed hard enough to rattle the walls. Emily winced. Was that normal? I exhaled slowly. It is now. We said nothing more. I walked her to the guest room, flipped on the light, handed her an extra blanket from the closet. Before I turned to leave, she caught my hand for just a second. Not tight, not lingering, just steady. Thanks, she whispered. That word stayed with me all night. Even after the tantrum, even after the silence that followed, her voice, quiet and sincere, was the only sound that echoed in my chest. If you're still listening, please tap the like button on this video. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind where the sky was soft and gray, the kind that made the world feel slower. I just finished folding the last of the laundry when Emily peeked her head into the living room. Hey, she said, holding up her phone. There's a book club meet-up at this coffee shop over on Monroe. Low-key group, nothing weird. Wanna come? I blinked. You sure I won't be crashing anything? She laughed. You'll be the most emotionally stable person there. That's a public service. I chuckled and grabbed my jacket off the hook by the door. All right, I'm in. Let me just grab my keys. As I turned into the hallway, Claire appeared, shoulder against the frame of the bedroom door. She was in a sweatshirt that looked too big for her, arms folded, eyes scanning me like she hadn't planned this encounter, but wasn't moving, either. You going somewhere? She asked, voice casual. Too casual. Yeah, I said, zipping up my jacket. Book club. She tilted her head, pretending to be amused. Since when do you go to book clubs? I looked past her. Since now. Emily was in the kitchen, checking her phone, clearly giving us space, but listening. I could feel it. Claire stepped forward. Can't you just hang here tonight? We could make dinner. Watch something. I didn't stop moving. Just grab my wallet and keys. Emily invited me. I said yes. Claire's voice lowered, suddenly quieter. I'm trying, Ethan. I'm here, aren't I? I turned to her fully then. For the first time in a long while, really looking her in the eye. Now you want to try? She hesitated. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. She stepped in front of the door, blocking it. Not with anger, but desperation. Her hand reached out, barely brushing my arm. Please, just tonight. Stay? I stared at her hand, then lifted my gaze back to hers. You can find someone too, I said. The words were smooth, measured, but they cut just the same. I stepped past her gently, hand on the doorknob. Her arm dropped to her side like I'd knocked the wind out of her without ever raising my voice. As the door closed behind me, I caught a final glimpse of her, standing there in the hallway, small and still. I didn't slam it. Didn't have to. Sometimes, silence does more damage than shouting ever could. Outside, the air was crisp and cool. Emily looked up from her phone and smiled softly when she saw me. Ready? She asked. I nodded. And together, we walked down the front steps, not running, not sneaking, just moving forward. For once, I didn't look back. The book club had wrapped just after 9, and we'd lingered outside longer than we meant to, laughing about how one guy interpreted Wuthering Heights like it was a self-help manual, and how someone else kept insisting Kathy was misunderstood, not toxic. Emily and I eventually drifted into the nearby park, our voices falling into a quieter rhythm as the world around us dimmed. The walking path was lined with soft lamp posts, and every few feet the light caught in the branches, leaving silver halos around the trees. Emily kicked a rock gently ahead of her as we walked, hands buried in her jacket pockets. Her voice was calm, but there was a current underneath. I probably shouldn't say this, she began, but I think I've crossed a line with you. I turned to look at her. What do you mean? She stopped walking, letting out a soft breath. I've started to feel something I didn't expect. And I know the timing's a mess. I know it looks bad, but I don't know. I'm just tired of pretending I don't care what happens to you. She glanced up at me then, eyes honest, not pushy. not hoping for anything immediate, just telling the truth. I stepped a little closer, heart slow and steady. Emily, a sudden sound behind us, sharp heels on concrete, fast. Then Claire's voice, raw and too loud for the night. You disgusting little traitor. Before either of us could turn, Claire surged forward from the shadows and shoved Emily hard, both hands landing square in her chest. Emily stumbled back with a sharp gasp and fell hard onto the sidewalk. Her elbow scraped loud against the concrete. What is wrong with you? I shouted, stepping between them instantly. Claire stood there, wild-eyed, her breath ragged. She's my sister, she screamed. You think I don't see what this is? You think I'm stupid? I crouched beside Emily, who was wincing, her jacket torn slightly at the sleeve. Are you all right? I asked, my hand lightly touching her arm. She nodded, shaken. Yeah, just knocked the wind out of me. Don't touch her, Claire shrieked. She's not yours. I stood, fury pulsing just beneath my skin. You did this, I said to Claire, my voice like ice. You broke us. You invited chaos. Don't act surprised when it finally shows up at your door. She's my family, she snapped back. And you're my husband. I didn't shout. I didn't flinch. You treated marriage like a dare, Claire. You can't wave a flag for freedom and then scream when someone else walks through the door you opened. Claire's hands balled into fists, but she didn't speak. Her chest heaved. I turned back to Emily, offering my hand. She took it, rising slowly, brushing gravel from her knees. Claire stood still as we walked past her, silent now, eyes full of something that looked like disbelief. Emily didn't look back. Neither did I. We didn't have to. The silence behind us was louder than any accusation Claire could have thrown. It was the sound of a wall she built herself, cracking, and maybe for the first time, she felt what it was like to be on the other side of it. The front door creaked open just past midnight. I stepped inside, silence wrapping the house like a too-tight blanket. Murphy didn't even lift his head from the couch. The usual smell of Claire's expensive diffuser, jasmine and sandalwood, was replaced by something raw, like nerves frayed into the air. I closed the door quietly behind me. Then I saw her. Claire was sitting on the hardwood floor at the foot of the stairs, legs folded beneath her, arms limp, palms pressed flat against her thighs like she was trying to keep from falling apart. Her face was blotchy, red from crying. She looked up slowly as I approached, eyes glassy and swollen. I didn't mean to push her, she whispered. I lost it. You were looking at her like she mattered more than I ever did. I didn't say anything, just stood there. I hate this version of me, she went on, voice shaking. I hate what I've become. You have no idea how it feels, watching you drift toward her like I don't even exist anymore. She looked down, then up again, pleading. I wanted to go back. Please, let's just forget all of this. Forget the club nights, the talk, the books I read that got in my head. I was wrong. I was scared. I thought I needed something different. But the only time I feel like myself is when you're looking at me like you used to. I stepped closer, slow and quiet. She reached for my wrist and gripped it tightly. I'm ready to be what you wanted again, she said. Let's just shut the door on this. Be normal again. Please. I crouched beside her, knees cracking from the long walk earlier. I looked her in the eye, soft but steady. I remember everything, I said. All of it. The smirk when you said fidelity was a cage. The silence when your friends laughed at me. The way you watched me hurt and never flinched. I remember it, Claire. Her eyes shimmered with fresh tears. But I also remember something else, I continued. I remember how it felt when Emily stood by me without asking for anything in return. When she listened instead of waiting to argue. When I realized I didn't feel invisible anymore. Claire's grip on my wrist tightened, nails digging in just slightly. No, she said through clenched teeth. No, Ethan. She's my sister. I nodded gently. I know. And I love her. Claire's face twisted like I'd struck her. She jerked away, scooting back across the floor. You can't love her. That's not how this works. She screamed then, an ugly, shrieking sound that rattled the picture frames. You're throwing everything away. For her? You think that's real? You think she'll stay when it gets hard? I stood slowly, the weight of this moment pressing into my chest, but not breaking it. I think she already has, I said, in ways you never did. Claire slammed her fists into the floor, her sobs coming in broken gasps. Don't do this to me, she cried. Please, please, I can be better. I'll fix it. Just tell me what to do. I walked to the coat rack and pulled my suitcase from where it had been waiting for days. Already packed. Quietly planned. She froze when she saw it. Her face went pale. You packed? I nodded. Our lawyer will be in touch. You'll have time to read everything before you sign. She shook her head slowly, back and forth like she could rewind reality with sheer willpower. I can't believe you're really walking away. I paused at the door. Look back one last time. I already did, Claire. You just never noticed. Then I turned the knob and stepped out. The night air was cold and clear, the sky ink black above our quiet street. Every house had its lights off, curtains drawn. Except ours, where the light from the entryway spilled across the driveway like a final goodbye. I didn't look back again, because this wasn't the kind of ending that came with fireworks or clean conclusions. It was the kind where silence speaks louder than love ever could. And the part that hurt most wasn't leaving. It was knowing she finally wanted me when I was already gone. The new house sits just a few minutes from the lake, small, with creaky floors and uneven windows, but it feels like a place that was waiting for us. Like it knew two people would walk in carrying bruises and still choose softness anyway. Emily filled the space with life quickly, plants in every corner, handwritten notes tucked into drawers, the smell of cinnamon and coffee lingering in the kitchen. It didn't feel like starting over. It felt like finally starting right. Most mornings, I wake up to the sound of her humming. Nothing loud, just that quiet tune she always carries when she's making eggs or flipping through a book on the porch. Murphy stretches at the foot of the bed, tail thumping lazily as I slide out from under the covers and head toward the smell of toast. She greets me with a smile that still catches me off guard. Not because it's big or dramatic, but because it's real, undemanding, present. You sleep okay? She always asks, and I always answer honestly. Because with her, I can. We spend our evenings cooking together, dancing between the stove and sink, laughing at our mistakes. She burns the rice sometimes. I still mess up her tea ratio. But none of it matters. There's no tension between us, no need to perform. Just space to be together. Sometimes, when we're sitting on the back porch watching the lake turn gold in the evening, I turn to her and say it again, thank you. She always tilts her head and asks, for what? For bringing the light back. She never corrects me. Never says, you brought it back yourself. Even though maybe that's true, too. She just reaches over, takes my hand, and lets the silence settle around us in the way silence is meant to. Gentle, not sharp. We don't talk much about the past. Not because we're hiding from it, but because it doesn't run this house anymore. This house belongs to the version of me that finally learned what peace sounds like, and the version of her who never asked me to earn it. The house buzzed with the familiar noise of a family holiday, laughter in the kitchen, kids chasing each other around furniture wrapped in string lights, the smell of baked ham and cinnamon rolls warming the air. I stepped inside with Emily's hand tucked in mine, her coat folded neatly over her arm, cheeks pink from the cold. We were greeted with hugs and smiles, the kind that come easy when people are genuinely glad to see you. Look who finally made it. My cousin Mark grinned, handing me a cider. Heard the two of you are impossible to reach these days. I laughed, glancing at Emily. That's her fault. She makes peace look like a full-time job. She nudged me playfully, and we drifted into the living room where the old fireplace crackled, and familiar faces settled on couches with paper plates in hand. That's when I saw her. Claire. She stood near the entryway, coat still on, arms crossed tight over her chest. Her eyes scanned the room like she was searching for a door that didn't exist. A few relatives greeted her, but it was polite. Shallow. No one lingered. She saw me. Saw Emily. Her mouth parted just slightly, like maybe she had something to say, but nothing came. I nodded once, just enough to acknowledge her. And then I turned back to Emily, who was laughing with my aunt over a failed cookie recipe. There was no drama, no whispers, no scene, just a quiet truth that hung in the air between rooms. Some people think loyalty is optional, until they realize it was the only thing holding them in the room. Claire stayed near the doorway all evening, and we stayed surrounded by warmth. And that was the end of the story. I've been turning one moment over in my mind lately, when Emily chose to stand beside me at that backyard party, not knowing where it would lead, but doing it anyway. She didn't know me that. So tell me, did she do the right thing? Let me know in the comments. And if this story stirred something in you, hit like and subscribe so we can keep walking through these moments together.